A warm Mississippi night, quiet enough to hear your own heartbeat, but tense enough to make the shadows feel alive. A lone car rolls to a stop outside a small home. Nothing extraordinary, nothing remarkable, except for the man stepping out of it. He's tired, but determined. His arms are full of T-shirts printed with 3 words powerful enough to shake an entire state: Jim Crow must go. He doesn't know it yet, but these are the last steps he will ever take. The crickets keep singing. A porch light flickers, and somewhere in the thick darkness of Jackson, Mississippi, something moves. A rustle, soft, almost harmless, the kind of sound you'd ignore if this wasn't 1963, and if you weren't a black man fighting an unspoken war. He pauses, just for a second. Then, a single gunshot tears the night open. It's not just loud, it's final. A brutal punctuation mark at the end of a life spent chasing justice. He collapses onto the driveway. The T-shirts scatter beside him like fallen feathers. From inside the house, a scream. Then another. Children crying. A wife's voice cracking as she calls his name, begging him to breathe, begging the world to be fair just once. The neighbors rush out, but the ambulance? It refuses to come, refuses him. And so his blood becomes the only witness left, bleeding across the concrete, leaving a trail that even time won't dare wash away. Everything goes still, the kind of stillness that feels wrong, heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. Before Malcolm X, before the March on Washington, there was Medgar Evers, a man history tried to bury before it even learned how to speak his name. A man whose only crime was confronting an empire built on fear. But here's the question that haunts this story, that waits in the silence of that driveway even now. Who pulled the trigger that night? And why was the world so ready to forget him? Because if one bullet could shake a movement, what kind of threat did Medgar Evers pose to the people trying so desperately to keep him quiet? Imagine a place where the rules weren't written on paper, but carved into the land itself. A world where a wrong look could end your life, and a right act could still get you killed. Now picture Mississippi in the early 1960s. But don't picture it as a map. Picture it as a battlefield. The heat is heavy, the air thick, and beneath it all an invisible tension hums, a warning to every black family who dares to step outside after sunset. Burning crosses pierce the night like demonic beacons. School doors shut out children because of their skin. And the law? It's not just biased, it's weaponized. Imagine police cars slowly driving past mobs, not to stop them, but to let them know they're safe to continue. Imagine families whispering every night, will they come for us next? This wasn't fear, it was routine. There were lynchings that never made newspapers, names that vanished from records the moment the rope tightened, bodies found in rivers, and nobody asked questions. Not because the truth was unknown, but because the truth was unwanted. Now cut to a young boy in that same world. Little, quiet, thoughtful, born to sharecroppers. Hands blistered from working cotton fields before most kids his age had learned their alphabet. At night, he lies under an open sky, dust on his clothes, staring up at the stars. And somewhere between the silence of those fields and the soft hum of cicadas, he whispers prayers, not for himself, but for a world he hasn't even seen yet. A world where a child can walk without fear. That boy was Medgar Evers. He grows older, taller, stronger. his hands still calloused, but now from carrying hopes too heavy for most grown men. He leaves Mississippi to fight in World War II. Imagine that, a man ready to die for a country that treats him like a stranger. Picture him standing on foreign soil, rifle in hand, defending freedom he doesn't fully have. Bullets fly, bombs fall, but he survives. Not because the war is kind, but because he believes the world beyond it must be. And so he comes home, a decorated soldier, uniform pressed, medals shining, a symbol of bravery and loyalty. But instead of honor, he gets a lesson. He walks to a Mississippi courthouse to cast a vote, a simple act of citizenship, the right he fought to protect. And the door slams in his face. No explanation, no apology, just the same message whispered by the soil he grew up on. You may have fought for America, but America still won't fight for you. That humiliation hits him harder than gunfire ever did. It burns, it stings, it strips him bare. But it doesn't break him. It transforms him. Because in that moment, something inside Medgar shifts. Not anger, not revenge, but purpose. The kind of purpose that doesn't whisper, it roars. He looks at Mississippi, the mobs, the laws, the fear, and he realizes something chilling. If the system refuses to see a black man as human, then the system must be confronted, challenged, exposed. Every second he spent on the battlefield overseas had prepared him for the battlefield at home.
But here's the question, the one that turns this story from history into destiny. What does a man become when peace fails him, when justice flees from him, when the law designed to protect him becomes the very thing that crushes him? What would Medgar Evers decide to do in a world that refused to let him live as a citizen unless he dared to fight like a soldier again? Picture this, a man driving alone down endless Mississippi backroads, roads so dusty they turn the horizon into a blur. The sun beats down on his car, the tires hum, and every mile he drives, he knows one truth. Someone, somewhere, is watching him. Medgar Evers isn't a celebrity. He isn't a politician. He isn't even safe. But he has just become something far more dangerous, the first NAACP field secretary in Mississippi. And in a place built on silence, he arrives with one mission: to make people speak. He knocks on doors where fear has lived for generations. Small wooden homes with broken windows and porches that creak under the weight of sorrow. Inside, families whisper stories most of America refuses to hear. A mother shows him what the fire left of her house: charred walls, ash where a childhood once existed. She holds the hand of her youngest child, trembling, because it wasn't the fire that scared her, it was the men who lit it. Another mother, hands shaking, pulls back a blanket. Beneath it, the mutilated body of her son. A teenager, smiling in every photo on the wall, unrecognizable now. She doesn't cry, not anymore. She's run out of tears. She just asks one thing: will anyone listen this time? Medgar writes it all down, every wound, every scar, every truth too painful for the newspapers to print. He travels to churches where people pray with their eyes open, watching the windows for headlights. He goes to backyards where fathers bury burned crosses like they're trying to hide their nightmares in the soil. And then, voter registration day. Imagine a line of black citizens stretching down a dirt road. Hope in their pockets, determination in their steps. But at the courthouse door stands a white man with a shotgun resting on his hip, a reminder that democracy has a price in Mississippi. Medgar steps in front of them, calm, steady, not flinching once, because he knows something they don't. Fear only works on those who accept it. He organizes boycotts that make entire towns shake. He teaches protesters how to lock arms tight enough that a mob can't break them. He walks into danger with a notebook in one hand and the truth in the other. He escorts teenage activists past screaming crowds. He shields elders from rocks thrown by men who want them silent. Every day, he risks his life, not with guns or violence, but with files, meetings, and marches. Work so simple and yet so threatening that the most powerful men in Mississippi start to whisper his name like a warning. He is educated, he is unbroken, he is unafraid, and in a state built on fear, that makes him the most dangerous man alive. But here's the part no one sees. While Medgar exposes the truth in daylight, the truth is also exposing him. Because the more he uncovers, the burned homes, the murdered sons, the voter intimidation, the more enemies begin to move in the shadows. Men who smile politely by day and load their rifles by night. And as Medgar drives down another empty road, headlights cutting through the dark, he can't shake the feeling that the deeper he digs into Mississippi's secrets, the closer someone else is getting to him. Picture this: a room full of men in suits, fresh haircuts, polished shoes, smiles warm enough to fool anyone who doesn't know better. But don't be fooled. Because these men, these perfectly groomed, perfectly mannered men, are about to declare war. They call themselves the White Citizens Council, not hoods and burning torches, but briefcases and business connections. Not backwoods meetings, but city halls and courthouse offices. They shake your hand at noon and sign your family's destruction at dusk. Imagine businessmen, bankers, sheriffs, and judges all agreeing on one thing: Medgar Evers must be stopped. Not by bullets, not yet, but by pressure, by fear, by making his entire community collapse around him. So they begin with silence, the kind that spreads like poison. A black family attends one of Medgar's meetings. Their names quietly appear on a blacklist. The next morning, the bank calls. Your loan has been denied. The father goes to work and hears, "We don't need you anymore." A mother walks into a grocery store and every pair of eyes turns away, not in judgment, but in warning. These men destroy lives without ever raising a voice. And inside the Evers home, the consequences hit harder than any threat. Medgar's children learn a new kind of bedtime story, the kind where Daddy shows them where to hide. They practice dropping to the floor when they hear a car door slam. They crawl under windows at night because bullets have already shattered glass in homes just like theirs. Picture a little girl asking her mom, "Why do the bad men hate Daddy?" And Merle, Medgar's wife, smiling through a fear she never lets her children see.
Merle watches the sun go down each night with a sinking feeling in her chest. Because sunset in Mississippi does not bring rest. It brings danger. She listens for engines slowing outside. She memorizes every dog bark, every footstep, every flicker of light. She counts the seconds between Medgar's meetings and his return home. Every minute late feels like a lifetime. And through all of this, Medgar keeps moving. He keeps organizing. He keeps speaking. His voice gets louder even as the threats get closer. The threats grew louder. The nights grew longer.
And still, he pushed forward. People begin whispering in church pews. They're watching him closer now. Store owners warn him softly. They're asking questions about you. Even strangers on the street give him looks, not of anger, but of pity. The kind you give someone standing on train tracks with the locomotive already approaching. Because everyone in Mississippi knows something Medgar refuses to accept. The White Citizens Council doesn't just strike back, they crush. And just when their pressure campaign is at its peak, when families are breaking, when the fear is suffocating, when Medgar's name is uttered only in whispers, a new case lands on his desk. A case so brutal, so raw, so explosive, that it doesn't just expose Mississippi's darkness, it paints a target on Medgar Evers so large, even the shadows begin to move. Picture this, a photograph on a table, a boy's face, smiling, innocent, 14 years old. A face that should have grown into a man, but instead became a symbol carved into America's conscience. His name was Emmett Till. And his murder didn't just shake the nation. It sent a shockwave straight into the heart of Medgar Evers. Medgar doesn't hesitate. He packs a notebook, a camera, a recorder, and drives straight into the belly of Mississippi's darkness. But this isn't a normal investigation. This is a suicide mission disguised as justice. He arrives in the counties where danger isn't an idea, it's a rule. Where signs hang at the town limits like warnings etched in steel. N-word, don't let the sun set here. Not metaphors, not urban legends. Real signs, real threats, real death waiting behind them. Medgar walks into homes where mothers still tremble at the memory of the night Emmett was taken. They speak in whispers because walls have ears. Because neighbors can become enemies. Because one wrong word to the wrong person can be the end. He meets witnesses hidden behind cracked doors, peeking out like fugitives in their own land. They tell him about the screams, the truck, the men who bragged about what they did. Men the law protected like royalty. Medgar writes every detail, every horror, every truth Mississippi tried to bury. And with every testimony he gathers, the air around him gets heavier. The roads quieter, the stairs colder. Because people are noticing him. People who do not want this story told. Still, he pushes forward. He travels back to the river where Emmett's body was found. Water still and silent, as if holding its breath. He photographs the scene. He collects the facts. He pieces together the lie the killers told and then tears it apart. He exposes the truth, that Emmett Till wasn't just murdered. He was lynched, tortured, executed. And the men who did it smiled in court because they knew the system would protect them. Medgar forces America to look at a crime it desperately wanted to ignore. He broadcasts the truth like a siren, loud enough to reach Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, loud enough to wake a sleeping nation. But in Mississippi, that truth is more dangerous than any bullet. And in doing so, he sealed his own fate. Imagine the camera slowly zooming in on Medgar's eyes. Tired, determined, unbroken. The kind of eyes that know the risk and still choose the road that leads into fire. Because while the country is just beginning to understand what happened to Emmett Till, Mississippi's darkest forces already understand something else. If Medgar Evers can uncover this truth, if he can expose their lies, if he can make the world listen, then he is not just a threat, he is a target. And by now, one man, hidden behind polite smiles and violent intentions, has already raised his rifle, set his sights, and whispered Medgar's name into the crosshairs.
Picture this: a nation glued to their televisions. President John F. Kennedy stands beneath bright studio lights, delivering the most powerful civil rights address America has ever heard. His voice is calm but urgent, measured but trembling with truth. He speaks of equality, of justice, of the moral crisis dividing the country. Millions watch, millions hope. And in a small office miles away, Medgar Evers listens too. Not with optimism, but with exhaustion. Because he knows that speeches may stir the nation, but in Mississippi, words alone don't save lives. It's late, past midnight. The meeting room is emptying, chairs scraping against the floor as activists gather their papers. Medgar rubs his eyes, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders. Threats, tasks, names, marches. Another list of families he needs to protect tomorrow. He steps into the humid night, breathes in thick southern air, and climbs into his car for the drive home. A simple drive, a short drive, but a drive that will end everything. His tires crunch over gravel as he pulls into his driveway, a driveway that has already seen too many nights filled with fear. The porch light glows. His children are asleep. Merle is waiting inside, probably rehearsing the same silent prayer she's whispered every night. Let him make it home. Please let him make it home. He steps out of the car. A stack of Jim Crow must-go shirts rests in the passenger seat. His keys jingle softly. And then, the world stops breathing. In the bushes, a rifle barrel glints beneath moonlight, so still it looks like part of the earth itself. One heartbeat. Two. The trigger pulls. The shot rips the night apart. Medgar collapses onto the driveway. The same driveway where his children once played hopscotch, now soaked in the blood of a man simply walking into his own home. The front door bursts open. Merle runs out, barefoot, terrified, screaming his name with a sound no family should ever make. Neighbors rush from their houses, frozen by the horror. No one speaks. The silence hangs like fog. America cried for Kennedy that night. His speech dominated headlines. His message echoed in every newspaper. But Medgar's blood was still warm on the driveway, and the nation barely turned its head. Police arrive. The investigation begins, or at least pretends to. A suspect emerges quickly, Byron Della Beckwith, a man wrapped in patriotism, church membership, and deep, polished hatred. A man whose friends smile during the arrest. A man who never denies what he did, because he believes he won't have to. He goes to trial, twice. The courtroom is a spectacle. White jurors chatting like they're waiting for a matinee to begin. Beckwith sitting confidently, smirking, shaking hands between breaks, receiving applause as he walks out. Evidence piles up. Witnesses testify, but none of it matters. The verdict? Not guilty. Not guilty. Twice. The killer walks free, while children grow up without their father, while Merle stands alone, while Medgar's meme fades behind louder tragedies. Justice wasn't delayed. It was denied. So here's the breaking point. The moment when this story turns from tragedy to something even darker. How do you fight a system where the killer is celebrated and the victim is forgotten? How does a movement survive when the bravest among them is murdered at his own front door and the world barely whispers his name? Imagine a movement standing still, millions mourning, millions afraid, and then one death, one driveway, one bullet shifts the entire weight of history. Medgar Evers doesn't vanish after that shot. He explodes. His name races through church basements, barber shops, kitchen tables. People whisper it at first, then speak it, then shout it. Because something changes the moment he dies. Something cracks open. Malcolm X steps to a podium, fire in his voice, and speaks Medgar's name like a warning to America. That martyrdom creates soldiers. That silencing one truth makes 1,000 more rise. Martin Luther King Jr., preparing for the March on Washington, invokes Medgar's sacrifice, not as tragedy, but as fuel. A reminder of what courage costs and what freedom demands. And then there is Merle, the wife who ran into the night, who held him in her arms, who felt his life slip away beneath her fingers. She does not collapse, she transforms. She steps into the spotlight he left behind and becomes a force powerful enough to move mountains, a civil rights titan in her own right. A woman who refuses to let the world forget her husband's name, even when the world tries to drown it out. But even as the speeches grow louder, even as marches stretch from city to city, something remains behind, in that quiet Mississippi home. The bullet hole, still etched in the wall, still raw, still screaming a story without words. And the driveway, the same concrete that held Medgar as he fell, remains stained, unwashed, untouched. Not because the family couldn't clean it, but because they wouldn't. Because some truths should never be erased. History remembers triumphs. It forgets the price paid to earn them. So imagine now a slow montage. Thousands marching, fists raised. Churches singing freedom songs through grief. Funerals that feel like revolutions. Victories carved out one courthouse at a time. And the long road that follows, a road still being walked today. And here's the question lingering at the edge of that road. Was Medgar's story ending that night, or was it the beginning of something far larger than one man? Fade to now. Police sirens slicing through darkness. Phone cameras capturing injustice. Crowds chanting names of the fallen. Signs reading, "I can't breathe." Hands up, don't shoot. Say their names. Because the war Medgar fought, the war he died in, didn't end in 1963. It shifted. It changed uniforms, changed language, changed battlegrounds, but it never disappeared. Medgar Evers fought a war America wasn't ready to face. A war still fought in streets, in courts, in quiet homes terrified of a knock at the door. And then the line that freezes everything. And maybe the most tragic part is this. The bullet that killed Medgar Evers is still echoing today. Fade out. Remember his name. Question the past. Shape the future.